Now, I don't want to waste any more time. I don't, because I have a guest on that I have been looking forward to having on this show for a very, very long time. It's great to have the wrestlers on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are people in this industry that have seen it all from very different perspectives. And this guy is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they're seeing what happened with all of WCW and being such a big part of Impact as well. Just, I can't imagine what the eyes have spotted and been around that this guy has done. Of course, he has a book out, Sitting Ringside, Volume 1. He couldn't put it in one book. He and Guy Evans put this together. And I am thrilled to welcome in just one of the best to ever do it, David Penzer. David, how are you today?
Thank you very much. Did not deserve that, but I appreciate it, and I'm doing okay. Glad to be here.
Well, you deserve it. Stop. Come on.
I don't think so, but I appreciate it.
Well, you got it. Well, David, first, I just want to, let's start at the beginning. It's very interesting how you got into pro wrestling. And, there's a lot of people out there that kind of dream about, they see it on TV and they're like, well, how do I sneak my way into the industry? And it's a fascinating tale how you managed to work your way in. How did you do it?
I call it the improbable, impossible journey. I shouldn't have been there. I got lucky, a combination of luck and hard work. And I'm not exactly sure. I was talking to an old friend, Joe Gomez, yesterday, who read the book. He used to wrestle WCW as the Desperado, Joe Gomez. And we were talking about that, how back in 1990, you just didn't go backstage at a WCW show if you weren't a wrestler. I got a pinky toe in the door, and I did the best I could to keep it going. And unfortunately for me, I did, but it shouldn't have happened. It's a crazy tale, which is one of the reasons why, Guy Evans wanted to make this. We're going to originally have a scrapbook, but wanted to make it an autobiography about my life, my journey, because it is a crazy journey. And I don't know what to say. I mean, I just got a lucky break and I made it happen, but it shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. And, we've been going back and forth, getting ready to have you on the show. And I just think about everything that you saw from the beginning of WCW until the end. And I can only imagine some of the crazy stuff that you saw, but also the people that you got to be around. I mean, you being in WCW spanned generations of incredible talent from, some of the great youthful stars. I mean, the beginnings of, or, very early beginnings of guys like Chris Jericho, to being around people like Hulk Hogan and Kevin Sullivan and Roddy Piper. Of course, I know you had a great relationship with Piper and Sullivan and so on. When you think about that, I mean, doesn't that blow you away that you got to be around all these incredible people?
100%. Absolutely. To this day, it does. I'm incredibly blessed, and to get to know my heroes and get to know the heroes of the next generation is an incredible thing. So I spoke to Ric Flair the other day, and I'm like, I just talked to Ric Flair on the phone, and that's not like something that's a major thing for me, but I hung up, and I'm like, this whole journey of doing the autobiography and doing all the media has been very therapeutic. It's made me realize and appreciate to a stronger degree than ever what I got to be a part of and experience and who I got to know. And it's mind blowing.
Now there's some pretty incredible stuff in the book, and you kept a lot of documents and other memorabilia that showed up in this book that I think would absolutely blow people away when they pick it up. Tell everybody a little example about some of the things that are in here that when they see it, they're going to be like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Well, it's almost the evolution of the format, of the television format, because it starts like in '92. There's a format for a WCW Worldwide show where it's just one page, so one pager. You know, Bobby Eaton versus blank, and then the Road Warriors versus blank and blank, and Jody Hamilton, who was in charge of the enhancement talent, who was the reason I was there. He would fill in the blanks of who we thought were the, good people. And maybe you might have like a Tom Zink versus Arn Anderson main event, which was semi-competitive. But, and then you get to the last Nitro, which is there, the last Nitro, which I can't believe has never come out, but finally we got it out there. And, you got incredible detailed production notes and talent notes and finishes and, it's almost how it really is how the sausage is made. You get to see how the sausage is made. And so, yeah, it's over 200 pages of internal memos and mostly formats from the 90s and early 2000s. Last Nitro, the night that David Arquette won the world title is in there. And that was not the original finish. Yeah, you could go to davidpenzer.com. davidpenzerbook.com. There's a bunch of bundles that have been really popular. And like people have been saying, I'm going to take the last Nitro, because you could get a bundle where you actually, not only in the book, but you get a printout of the last Nitro format. And people have been saying, I want to go to a WrestleCon or a convention like that. And, get Ric Flair and Sting to sign the last match on WCW Nitro by their names on the format and frame it in my office, which actually is a really cool idea. So, I don't know why I saved it, but I found it and it's there, and it's pretty darn cool.
What were some of the surprising things that you learned as you went along? Because obviously you're on the outside looking in, and then all of a sudden you got immersed in this. What shocked you or surprised you the most as you started to learn about the industry?
Oh, good question. I don't know that I have an answer to that. You stumped me, man.
That's my job.
Maybe the egos that emerged when things got good. When we were all struggling to get to try to put 250 people in center stage for a WCW Saturday night taping. There wasn't really, there was always egos, but there wasn't really, you had Lex Luger, full of himself. And nothing against Lex. Lex has done a 180 in his life and become a wonderful person. But when there's money on the line and millions of dollars on the line, like in the late 90s, the worst of people comes out. And I'm not saying I blame them. If I was in their shoes, I'm not saying I wouldn't have done the same thing. But that surprised me certainly. But there was not millions of dollars at stake. When I first started in the business, a good contract was $125,000 a year for WCW. So there wasn't that kind of money on the line. But once the Monday Night Wars exploded, all of a sudden it became, people became millionaires overnight.
When did you feel like things were really exploding in WCW? Because there's, we sometimes like to talk about the point where, things are going to go bad. But where did you guys start to get the feeling like, wow, we're really onto something here and something huge is going to happen?
I would say the first Nitro at the Mall of the Americas. It was an interesting crowd. And when Lex Luger walked out, and he had been at a WWE event the night before house show in Canada, and a light bulb went off in my head, and I'm like, holy crap, we're not playing around anymore, So I would say that, but also when Scott Hall walked down the steps and grabbed my mic in Macon, Georgia, and declared war that was like another holy crap light bulb, moment. Like, this is going to be good. So I would say those kind of things. Underrated. Underrated. A lot of people like to talk about Nitro and the highlight moments of that. But I remember when, even before WCW Monday Nitro, when Savage came in, and Flair and Savage was the feud on top of the card. All of a sudden, the houses started like doubling. When I say doubling, it went from like 1,200 people to like 2,400 people or 3,000 people. But that didn't go unnoticed. We felt a wave. So that was sort of the beginning of it. And then we just, exploded from there, as you know.
Yeah, I still remember that night when Luger showed up and was watching on TV, and I just saw that and I said, wow, shots fired. Here we go.
Exactly.
I mean,
Sure.
that was just an absolutely incredible evening. And and then when Scott Hall showed up, I mean, it was just such a phenomenal time. And I mean, look, I put on an NWO shirt like everybody else. I was a Hulkamaniac. Reuben, you had a question for Dave Penzer.
Yeah, hey, Reuben Bresler here. It's a pleasure to meet you, David. You've had such a long and storied career in the industry, and WCW was a real watershed moment for professional wrestling. The Monday Night Wars and the rivalry between the two brands. We haven't really seen anything like that since then. ... until recently, until maybe AEW came to pass, although there was ECW in there as well. What about the current era of wrestling and the rivalry that currently exists? Does it make you wistful? Is there anything that reminds you? And is there any major differences now than you recall from those WCW days?
First of all, hey, Reuben, nice to talk to you. It is sort of the next, hot period of professional wrestling since the Monday Night Wars. And, there's so much going on. Even TNA, the little engine that could, is chugging along. But, yeah, I mean, it's a little different now just because, of the world we live in. There's, it used to be that we would have like 7 million people watching, one of our shows. And now if you get 700,000, it's a pretty darn good number because of all the different ways you could stream. And actually the first person who smartened me up to that years before it happened was Jeff Jarrett. He said, he told me a long time ago, decades ago, Dave, hey, Penzer, you don't need TV. And I said, what do you mean you don't need TV? He said, there's going to be streaming. That's the next thing. And I said, you're out of your mind. And he was right. But yeah, it's a more difficult race for sure. But yeah, it's fun to watch. Totally different products in my opinion. WWE is more storyline based. AEW is more matchup, dream matches and stuff like that based. And, it just depends on what you like. And, but the one thing that kind of I don't want to say disturbs me. The one thing I hate to see is the polarization of AEW fans versus TNA fans versus WWE fans. I will tell you this. I know for a fact that there's not one person in any company. Now, obviously you want your company to do good. It's a pride thing, but there's not one person in any company that wishes that AEW would go away or, WWE would go away. And you get a lot of that tribalization on social media. And, for a WWE person, look, there's a perfect example, Chad Gable right now. Unless I didn't look at the internet today, but unless it just broke, he's sort of going to be a free agent. And, that's good for him. If there was no AEW, if there was no TNA, then, he'd be re-signed with WWE unless he wanted to take his chance on the indie scene, which is actually, you could make a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
So it's good for everybody, whether he uses those companies as a way to get a better deal with WCW or WWE, or whether he ends up going to another company, he has options, and those options, are profitable. And So I just wish everybody would love professional wrestling. It shouldn't be, one company versus the other. And I hate this company and I love this company. Look, it might not be your cup of tea. I like to say on some of these interviews, Brett Lauderdale, who I consider a friend and a super businessman, one of the underrated business people in the wrestling business. But once you get a light bulb out, you lost me. So it's not something I want to see. So I don't watch it, but I don't wish that he would go out of business. I wish him the best. He's a genius. So just because I don't like something, or you don't like something, or the fans don't like something, doesn't mean that just don't watch it. Doesn't mean you hate it and you want it to go out of business. Just don't watch it. It's a free country. Yeah. So I'm sorry, I got on my soapbox.
That's all right.
Great.
That's what we like to do around here,
yeah.
Dave. It's all good.
There you go.
Soapbox it all you want, brother. You earned it.
There you go.
All right. Well, we have to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to have more with David Penzer. Of course, despite what he says, he is a legend in this business. No question about it. And of course, he's got Sitting Ringside Volume 1 out. And boy, if there's another volume coming, this is going to be something else, man. Of course, you can check it out, davidpenzerbook.com, and it's available on all your favorite outlets to purchase bookage. So get it in your library if you're a pro wrestling fan, because this is something else, and it's a very unique perspective on the world of pro wrestling. And if you want to find out all that stuff that happened in WCW, here's your guy to talk to. So stick around, everybody. We got a whole lot more with David Penzer here on the Mark Hoke Show. So stick around, guys. Having a great time here. We'll be right back.
.1015 FM KDON.
This is the Mark Hoke Show.
The Mark Hoke Show.
Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
And let's return to the Mark Hoke Show. Wait, that's my show, I guess.
That is your show.
I'm in charge. So I guess I kind of have to do this thing, huh? Come on, Reuben.
You're the captain now.
All right. I'm just having fun, everybody. Thanks for being with us. Top rated show here, live show on KDON. I can't say top rated because Hannity kind of takes that away from me. But otherwise, we're all good. What am I going to do? But having a blast here, the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment, and very happy to be on the phone with David Penzer, who's got his book Sitting Ringside Volume 1, and it is a very unique perspective on pro wrestling from, of course, obviously did the announcing for WCW and Impact as well, and other jobs with WCW as along the way. And very happy to have David on the show. David, thank you for being with us. Certainly appreciate it.
Sure, man. Hey, love him or hate him, it's hard to compete with Sean Hannity.
It is. It's a little tough. But yeah. But
you do okay.
I'm better looking than Sean, but he'd probably fight me on that. Now, Kevin Sullivan wrote the foreword in your book, and I really think that Kevin is a guy that just does not get the credit in the history of pro wrestling that he should. I mean, I remember the days when I first started picking up pro wrestling magazines and seeing pictures of Kevin down in Florida, doing his gig with the snake and the makeup and the whole mystic thing. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is the scariest man on the planet. And then Home Team Sports in Maryland, it picked up on my cable network, and I got to see the Florida Championship Wrestling. And from there I was like, oh my God, this Sullivan guy, whoa. And it just never stopped. And it's just funny that Kevin is so underrated. Could you tell everybody a little bit about Kevin Sullivan and just what you think his place should be in pro wrestling history?
Yeah, he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And if you read the book, he taught me so much, including life lessons that I live by today and I taught my kids. But he's so smart in a lot of different ways, not just the wrestling business. And he was the creative behind a lot of what you saw. Eric made the signings. Kevin certainly didn't sign Hall and Nash or Lex Luger, but Kevin was the guy who took the ball and ran with it. And really, without Kevin Sullivan, I don't think you'd see a heel Hulk Hogan in a million years. And so So yeah, he's just, I mean, I remember, growing up in championship wrestling from Florida and watching, the Devil, as they called it. And I don't know if you're allowed to say that these days, but I just did, I guess. But yeah. And then there's a very underrated, angle that most people haven't seen. It was at the very, very end of championship wrestling from Florida before it went out of business, where he started coming out of the fog. And it was one of the most entertaining things I think I've ever seen in professional wrestling. And Kevin forgot about it. And I found one interview and I sent it to him. This is years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And it was the finish was he was supposed to team with Dusty Rhodes, but that didn't work out. And he ended up teaming with Blackjack Mulligan. So Blackjack took that spot. But against Dory Funk Jr. and Humperdinck, and yeah, he was coming out of a fog. He literally, it was like didn't know where he was, and the promos were fantastic. Some of the most, if you could find it out there, and you like that kind of stuff, I would beg you to see it. And yeah, just a smart guy all around, so kind to me in so many different ways. It's almost like it was meant to be, because the first live wrestling show I ever went to, Kevin Sullivan was in the semi-main event. So, we've been on this journey together since I was 11 years old, and he's been a guide and a great friend, and love the guy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Reuben.
Hey, Reuben Bresler again. I had a question about, the way you got started. It sounds like a movie. It sounds like a TV script. Is the way that you got started in the wrestling industry just sort of kind of just walking in like you already belonged? Is that possible anymore? In our world of, more security, more eyeballs, the democratization of social media, or how would you recommend somebody get involved in the industry in the capacity that you got involved in becoming a manager or a ring announcer or somebody backstage?
It's a little different now, but how you carry yourself is still important. Like I said earlier, I talked to Joe Gomez, an old wrestling friend from WCW yesterday, and we were talking about that. He was talking about how, I don't know, I didn't consciously come up with my attitude, but I'm glad that I unconsciously thought of it, because if I'd have gone to that first WCW show, brought up enhancement talent, and went around shaking everybody's hand and, taking pictures and asking for autographs, I'd have been gone. Never, this story, we wouldn't be talking right now. And something in me, and I don't know what it was like, act like you've been there before, even though I hadn't. Even though inside I'm marking out, holy crap, there's the Four Horsemen, holy crap, the Rock and Roll Express. But but I didn't. I kept it internal, and I still think that goes a long way. If you get an opportunity to go in a locker room and there's a hero or somebody that you grew up watching who's headlining the show, if you're new, hey, yeah, I didn't even introduce myself to those people for many different shows. I just stayed with my little group of guys that I brought up from Florida, and eventually they would come to me. I think Tracy Smothers was the first one, and said, after probably 2 months or something, coming up every week, he would say, what are you doing here? And he wasn't being mean. He was like, he was curious, and then eventually, the guys became friendlier, and I think they respected the fact that I wanted to have an in and love the business, and wasn't, going around asking for autographs and stuff like that. Not to put myself over, but it was a different mindset. And, if you read in the book, eventually Junkyard Dog named me Walking Man, and people back, from that day, if I see them at a convention, they say, "Hey, Walking Man, how you doing?" So yeah, it's just if you act, just act like you've been there before. I know that the inner marking people want to be fawning and trust me, I was inside, but on the outside, I acted like I freaking didn't. I didn't care. Yeah. I was just here and I belong, like you said. And yeah, that's the lesson that you could still use.
My sister has a saying, to be like a duck, calm on the surface, but furiously paddling underneath. So keep that straight face, be a fan. You want to be a fan of the people that you work with. And the other thing that applies to you and applies to everything else is be so good they can't ignore you. So it's just great to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we thought about calling the book Stooge of the Year because when I first, went to WCW, as you can read about in the book, my thing was, what can I do to be helpful without being a mark, without geeking out? So Jim Ross would ask me to, hey, could you get the guys and bring them to the interview room, which was a different room than the dressing room. And so I'd run guys for him. And eventually, I walked around with a sign-in sheet that every wrestler had to sign in order to get paid, which ironically enough was the sheet that had like a whole bunch of little tiny writing typed words on top of it, which is why to this day nobody could sue WWE and say, you have to pay me more money for putting me on Peacock or the WWE Network, because it said, you had to sign it to get paid, and it basically said, we could use this for the rest of your life and our lives in eternity, and don't have to pay you a dime. But that was what you had to get you had to sign that to get paid, and and then I did a bunch of other stuff, and then I rang the bell, and eventually just stooging around. And there's a fine line between stooging and kissing ass, and I'm not saying I never crossed it, but I tried to stay on the other side of the kissing ass part.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. And I can imagine putting this book together, because like I said, I know there's another one that's going to be coming out. The memories coming back to you must have just been phenomenal when you're trying to figure out what you're going to be putting in here and seeing all these papers and thinking back to everything that happened to you. I can't imagine what that must have been like compiling all this.
Well, it was therapeutic. Like I said, I was in therapy. I've been in therapy for the last 6-8 months. It was easy for me. I just basically, me and Guy would talk about an hour and a half a day, and he'd ask me questions. He'd tape the conversation. He'd ask me questions, and I'd answer them, and tell my stories and stuff like that. And then it's funny. I like to tell people I didn't didn't see what he had written of my story until late in the game, and he decided we needed to go through each chapter and take out things I wasn't comfortable with, or change things that weren't factual that he might have gotten wrong. But he sent me every night. He sent me a chapter, and I remember reading chapter 3, and I looked at my wife sitting on the other side of the couch in her spot, and I said, "This is my story, and I can't wait to see what happens next. I can't wait for chapter 4." So he did an incredible job. He's incredibly talented, incredibly smart. And, it's just a continued blessing that I've somehow gotten that I don't even know that I deserve in the wrestling business, that I had, 30 years to live my dream. And now I get Guy Evans to write my books. And, I'm incredibly lucky and grateful.
Yeah. And it is going to be, I think everybody that's a wrestling fan needs to check this out. It is something special. And like I said, very unique perspective for everybody to take a look at. And, Dave, I know you got to get rolling, but it is just an honor for me to get to talk to you. I've always respected guys, the ring announcers, and, guys like Howard Finkel and so on, that, the childhood heroes for me, guys like you guys that did what you did. And man, I could sit here and talk to you all day, but like I said, I know you got time limitation. But the book is Sitting Ringside by David Penzer with Guy Evans. You can go davidpenzerbook.com and pick this thing up and check it out. And you pro wrestling fans, go get a copy of it right now. And you're going to hear a million stories and see some things that you're not going to see in any other book. And you will be glad you did. And David, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. We really do appreciate it.
Oh, I had a great time. This quote unquote legend has to go do an open house, which real estate business will keep you humble. So head there and sit there and wait for people to hopefully show up, and so I could show them around. And you got to keep on rolling. One book doesn't define your life. You got to keep on recreating yourself. So, but yeah, anybody who would read the book, if you could leave a review on Amazon, it's been an incredibly humbling and experience. And Jericho, I have talked to Jericho last week, and he loved the book, and Charles Robinson loved the book, and there's Cody Deaner. There's just been so many people that have been along on my journey that have read it and really liked it. So that means a lot. It means a lot that the fans love it, and I just want to thank them, everybody who's been a part of this journey, from inside the gate around the ring to outside the gate around the ring. I couldn't have done this on my own, and I appreciate you, Mark, and having me on, and Reuben as well.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to do this again sometime, David, because
Sure.
I'd love to talk more. This is like I said,
Sure.
I could do this all day. So
Yeah,
there's a lot more that we could certainly chat about. Like I said, got to go do an open house. So if you're in Florida and you want to come say hello, I'm in Raintree Village.
There you go. Or hop online, look him up. Go buy a house here in Vegas.
That's right.
If you want to move, go to Florida. Look up David Penzer.
There you go.
Dave, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the Mark Hoke Show. We'll talk again soon, my friend.
Yes, sir. Definitely. We'll do it again.
All right. So sounds good. Thanks a lot. There you go, everybody. David Penzer. How about that?
Amazing.
I mean,
It's like going to a museum.
And the cool thing about being in the position that a guy like him is in is, he didn't have to worry so much about, I've got to obviously there were times where he had to perform or be part of things and so on. But generally, he's not having to work out matches. He's not having to, worry about a massive contract, or am I going to lose a spot on the card or anything like that. For the most part, he got to sit back and enjoy the show. You know what I mean? Obviously he is asked to do things, and he did get involved in booking and some creative and stuff like that. But generally, he was an observer, and what a position that had to be in WCW,
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, we didn't even get to ask him about the episode.
Yeah.
But some other time we'll do that. But let's have a little fun and keep it positive for him for once.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure he's getting bombarded with that kind of stuff all the time. But
and also, there's another book to come out, and
Yeah.
there's the second half of the story. So there's a lot more to uncover here.
Yeah, it's like I said, sometimes those stories are the most fascinating ones to delve into, to say the least. So I want to thank David for coming on the show. Once again, the book is Sitting Ringside. It's volume 1 by David Penzer with Guy Evans. And Guy was on part of that Who Killed WCW first episode. And of course, he's got a very extensive book about WCW as well. Guy is a very well-spoken dude and a great writer. So you might want to check that book, Nitro book that he's got out, if you want to dig into that as well.